The notification sound from Erin's phone cut through the silence of my home office like a knife through butter. 3:17 in the morning, and my wife was getting text messages from Nathan, complete with the briefcase emoji, because apparently adultery needs professional branding now. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Grant Winslow, 44 years old, and I've spent the last 20 years as a financial auditor. My job is finding discrepancies, uncovering hidden numbers, and exposing the truth that people desperately want to keep buried. Turns out those skills are surprisingly useful when your marriage starts falling apart. The blue glow from Erin's iPhone illuminated our bedroom as I stood in the doorway, watching her sleep. 20 years of marriage, and I never thought I'd be the guy checking his wife's phone. But here's the thing about being an auditor. Once you spot an irregularity, you can't ignore it. And Erin had been full of irregularities lately. "Working late again tonight, honey," she'd said 3 times this week. "Team building retreat this weekend. Conference in downtown Cleveland." All perfectly reasonable explanations, except for one small problem. I'd called her office twice during these alleged late nights, and security told me the building was empty. I padded back to my office and opened my laptop. If there's one thing I've learned in 2 decades of following paper trails, it's that people always leave evidence. They can't help themselves. Our shared credit card statements told an interesting story. Hotel charges on days when Erin claimed to be at her mother's house. Expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to. And then there was the big one. A charge at the Marriott downtown for $247 on the same night she'd supposedly been homesick with a migraine. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and settled into my leather chair. The same chair where I'd calculated our taxes, planned our daughter's college fund, and mapped out our retirement. Now I was using it to document the systematic destruction of my marriage. The smart lock on our front door kept a digital log, a security feature I'd insisted on after the break-ins in our neighborhood last year. Funny how security measures designed to keep strangers out can reveal who's been let in. Nathan Carr's entry code had been used twice in the past month, both times when I was out of town on business. Nathan Carr, Erin's ex-boyfriend from college, the same Nathan who'd worked under her at Morrison & Associates before starting his own luxury car dealership. The same Nathan who'd always made snide comments about my boring career whenever we ran into him at neighborhood barbecues. My phone buzzed, a text from my boxing coach, Ty. "You coming to the gym tomorrow? Haven't seen you in weeks." I needed to hit something. Hard. The next morning, Erin was already gone when I woke up. A note on the kitchen counter. "Early meeting. Love you." The same handwriting that used to leave me love notes in my lunch bag now felt like evidence in a case file. I called her office. "Morrison & Associates, this is Rebecca." "Hi, Rebecca, this is Grant Winslow. Is my wife available?" "Oh, Mr. Winslow. Erin's not in today. She's at that recruiting conference in Columbus, remember? Won't be back until Friday." Columbus. She'd told me she was interviewing candidates locally all week. That evening, I drove to the Marriott downtown. Erin's silver BMW was parked in the garage, 3rd level, right next to a red Porsche that I recognized from Nathan's dealership advertisements. I sat in my Honda Civic for 2 hours, feeling like a character in a bad detective novel. At 9:30, they emerged from the elevator together. Nathan had his hand on the small of her back, the same spot where I used to guide her through crowded restaurants when we were dating. They kissed by the valet stand. Not a friendly peck, but a full, passionate kiss that made my stomach turn. Then Nathan handed the valet his keys and they drove off in his Porsche. I followed them to Chez Laurent, the French restaurant where Erin and I had celebrated our 10th anniversary. Through the window, I watched them share a bottle of wine that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. She was laughing at something he said, touching his hand across the table. I'd seen enough. Back home, I sat in my office and started a new spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, location. Column C, evidence. Column D, lies told to husband. If Erin wanted to play games with numbers, she'd picked the wrong opponent. The boxing gym smelled like sweat, leather, and broken dreams. Exactly what I needed. "You look like hell, Grant," Ty said, wrapping my hands with practiced efficiency. Ty Kramer was 50 years old, built like a brick wall, and owned both this gym and the Ledger, the dive bar next door. He'd been teaching me to box for 3 years, ever since my doctor told me I needed to find a better way to handle stress than bourbon and late-night spreadsheet sessions. "Marriage troubles," I said, throwing a weak jab at the heavy bag. "Figured as much. You've got that look, like someone who just found out their accountant's been skimming." Ty held the bag steady as I unleashed a combination that would have made my younger self proud. "Want to talk about it?" "She's cheating. With her ex. I've got proof." "What kind of proof?" I told him about the hotel charges, the smart lock logs, the lies about work conferences. Ty listened without judgment, occasionally nodding or grunting his approval when I landed a particularly solid punch. "So what's your plan?" he asked when I finished. "Confront her. Demand an explanation. File for divorce." Ty shook his head. "That's what amateurs do. You're an auditor, right? You don't just find discrepancies, you build cases. You document everything, establish patterns, create irrefutable evidence. What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting you stop thinking like a hurt husband and start thinking like a professional investigator. Don't get even. Get ahead." That night, I installed a GPS tracker on Erin's car. $29 on Amazon, delivered in 2 days with Prime shipping. Technology has made surveillance disturbingly easy. I also set up a new email account and started forwarding copies of all our financial statements to myself. If this was heading toward divorce court, I wanted my own records. Erin came home at 11:30, smelling like expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. "How was your day?" she asked, kissing my cheek with lips that had probably been on Nathan's mouth hours earlier. "Fine." "How was Columbus?" She didn't miss a beat. "Boring. Lots of resumes, not much talent. I'm exhausted." I nodded and smiled, the same smile I used with clients who were lying about their expenses. "Well, you should get some rest." The GPS tracker told a different story. She'd spent 4 hours at Nathan's house in Westlake, followed by dinner at another restaurant I'd never heard of. Columbus was 120 miles away. She'd never left Cleveland. Over the next week, I documented everything. Photos of them together at restaurants. Screenshots of Nathan's Instagram posts that showed Erin's scarf in the background. Credit card receipts from hotels and jewelry stores. My daughter Chloe called on Thursday night. "Dad, Mom seems really stressed lately. Is everything okay?" Chloe was 20, a junior at Ohio State studying psychology. She'd always been closer to her mother, but we'd maintained a good relationship even after she'd left for college. "Just work stuff, sweetheart. Nothing for you to worry about." "She's been asking weird questions about you, like whether I think you're happy or if you've seemed different lately." "What did you tell her?" "That you're the same boring dad you've always been, but in a good way." I laughed despite everything. "Thanks for the ringing endorsement." "Dad, if something was wrong, you'd tell me, right?" I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to explain that her mother was destroying our family for a man who drove a Porsche and sold overpriced cars to people with more money than sense, but Chloe didn't deserve to be dragged into this mess. "Of course, honey. I love you." "Love you too, Dad." After I hung up, I opened my laptop and added a new column to my spreadsheet. Collateral damage. Friday evening, Erin announced she was going out with her friend Melissa Harper, Missy to her friends. Missy worked in HR at Morrison & Associates and had been Erin's closest friend since college. She was also the biggest gossip in a 50-mile radius. Girls' night. Erin said, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror. Don't wait up. The GPS tracker led me to Nathan's dealership. Through the showroom windows, I watched them looking at a white Mercedes convertible. Nathan was playing the part of the charming salesman, but his hands kept wandering to places that were definitely not professional. I sat in my car for an hour, watching them laugh and flirt over German engineering and leather seats. When they finally left together in Nathan's Porsche, I got out and walked into the showroom. "Can I help you?" asked a young salesman with perfectly styled hair and a smile that probably cost his parents $10,000 in orthodontist bills. "I'm interested in that Mercedes convertible in the window." "Great choice. That's actually our demo model. Mr. Carr was just showing it to another customer, but she decided it wasn't quite right for her." "Mr. Carr?" "The owner, Nathan Carr. Do you know him?" "We've met," I said. "Mind if I take a look at the car?" 20 minutes later, I'd test-driven the Mercedes and learned that Nathan had been personally handling several female customers lately, including a gorgeous brunette who comes in every week. I didn't buy the car, but I did leave Nathan a little present. While the salesman was getting paperwork from the office, I used my key to leave a small scratch along the driver's side door of his precious Porsche. Nothing major, just enough to let him know someone was paying attention. The next morning, Erin was unusually affectionate. "I missed you last night," she said, wrapping her arms around me while I made coffee. "How was girls' night?" "Fun. Missy's going through a rough patch with her boyfriend. We mostly just listened to her complain about men." Another lie. Missy had posted photos on Facebook from the previous evening. She'd been at her sister's baby shower in Akron. I was starting to understand that my wife wasn't just cheating on me, she was insulting my intelligence while she did it. Sunday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was in my garage, pretending to organize tools while actually planning my next move, when Nathan's red Porsche pulled into my driveway. He got out wearing khakis and a polo shirt that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. His smile was the kind practiced in expensive dental offices and country club mirrors. "Grant, good to see you, buddy." Buddy. The man who was sleeping with my wife was calling me buddy. "Nathan, what brings you to the neighborhood?" "I was just driving by and thought I'd stop in. Haven't seen you and Erin at any of the community events lately." "We've been busy." He nodded, looking around my garage with barely concealed disdain. "I heard you were interested in that Mercedes at the dealership. My guy said you took it for quite a test drive, so he knew I'd been there." "Interesting. Nice car. A little out of my price range, though." "Well, if you're ever serious about upgrading from that Honda, let me know. I could work out a deal for you. Professional courtesy." Professional courtesy. From the man who was professionally servicing my wife. "I'll keep that in mind," I said. "How's business?" "Can't complain. Luxury market's been strong, lots of people with money to burn, you know? Speaking of which, how's the auditing world treating you?" "Same old numbers. Same old lies people tell themselves about money." Something flickered in his eyes. "Must be interesting, being able to see through people's financial arrangements. You'd be surprised what numbers can tell you about a person's real priorities." We stared at each other for a moment, two middle-aged men engaging in the kind of suburban psychological warfare that would have been settled with fists in a different era. "Well," Nathan said finally, "I should let you get back to your organizing. Tell Erin I said hello." "I'll be sure to do that." After he drove away, I went back into my office and opened a new document on my laptop. If Nathan wanted to play games, I'd show him what happened when you played games with someone who made a living exposing other people's secrets. I started with his business. Nathan's Luxury Motors had been open for 3 years, and like any small business, it left a digital footprint. Business license applications, tax records, customer reviews, Better Business Bureau complaints. It was all public information if you knew where to look. What I found was interesting. Nathan had started the dealership with a $2 million loan from First National Bank. The loan officer listed on the application was David Morrison, Erin's boss at Morrison and Associates. Small world. I dug deeper. Nathan's business had struggled in its first year, missing several loan payments before suddenly turning profitable. The turnaround coincided with Erin's promotion to senior recruiting manager, a position that put her in contact with wealthy executives looking for luxury vehicles. I started connecting dots. Erin had been referring clients to Nathan's dealership, probably in exchange for kickbacks. It wasn't illegal, but it was definitely an ethics violation at Morrison and Associates, where employees were required to disclose any financial relationships with vendors or partners. But that wasn't the best part. The best part was that Nathan had been claiming these referral payments as business expenses on his tax returns, while Erin hadn't been reporting them as income on hers. That was tax fraud, and it was very much illegal. I spent the rest of Sunday building a comprehensive file on Nathan's business practices. By evening, I had enough evidence to destroy both his dealership and Erin's career. Monday morning, I called in sick to work and drove to Nathan's dealership. "Is Mr. Carr available?" I asked the same young salesman from Friday night. "He's with a customer right now. Can I help you with something?" "I'm here about the Mercedes convertible. I'd like to make an offer." 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Nathan in his office, a glass-walled space overlooking the showroom floor. His desk was covered with photos of himself, with various luxury cars, and minor celebrities who'd apparently bought vehicles from him. "So, you've decided to upgrade after all," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. "I've been thinking about what you said, about professional courtesy. I'm sure we can work something out. What kind of numbers were you thinking?" I pulled out a folder and placed it on his desk. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about different numbers." He opened the folder and his face went white. Inside were copies of his loan documents, tax returns, and a detailed analysis of his referral arrangement with Erin. "Where did you get these?" "I'm an auditor, Nathan. This is what I do." "This is private financial information. You can't just—" "Actually, most of it's public record. The tax stuff, well, let's just say I have friends at the IRS who owe me favors." He closed the folder and pushed it back across the desk. "What do you want?" "I want you to stop sleeping with my wife." "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd taken Friday night, him and Erin kissing in the parking lot of Chez Laurent. "GPS tracker on her car," I explained. "Amazing what you can buy on Amazon these days." Nathan's jaw tightened. "You're spying on your own wife?" "I'm protecting my interests, just like you're protecting yours. The difference is, I'm better at it." "What's your point, Grant?" "My point is that you've been using my wife to build your business, and now you're using her to stroke your ego. Both of those things are going to stop." "Or what?" I tapped the folder. "Or I send copies of this to the IRS, the Better Business Bureau, your loan officer at First National, and every luxury car forum on the internet. Your business will be finished inside a month." Nathan stood up, his face flushed with anger. "You can't threaten me." "I'm not threatening you. I'm auditing you. There's a difference. Erin will never forgive you for this. Erin made her choice when she decided to cheat on me with a man who's been defrauding the federal government. Now she gets to live with the consequences." I left the folder on his desk and walked out of his office. As I passed through the showroom, I noticed the young salesman watching me with newfound respect. "Have a good day," I told him. "You too, sir." That evening, Erin came home in a foul mood. "How was work?" I asked. "Terrible. One of our vendor partners is having some kind of crisis. Might affect some of the placements I've been working on." "That's too bad. Anyone I know?" "Nathan Carr. You remember him, right? The car dealer?" "Vaguely. What kind of crisis?" "Something about his business licenses. Probably just bureaucratic nonsense, but it's still a headache." I nodded sympathetically. "I'm sure it'll work itself out." She looked at me strangely. You're being awfully understanding about this. About what? About me having to work late this week to sort everything out. Erin, you're a professional. I trust your judgment. It was the first completely honest thing I'd said to her in weeks. By Wednesday, Nathan had apparently decided that my visit was a bluff. The GPS tracker showed Erin's car at his house again, and his Instagram featured a photo of an expensive bottle of wine with the caption, "Celebrating good friends and better times." He was about to learn that I don't bluff. I started with his customers. Nathan's luxury motors had sold 43 vehicles in the past year, and every sale was a matter of public record through the DMV. I spent 2 days tracking down contact information for his most prominent clients. The first call was to Dr. Patricia Williams, a cardiologist who'd bought a BMW convertible 6 months earlier. Dr. Williams, this is Grant Winslow from the Better Business Bureau. We've received some complaints about Nathan's luxury motors, and I wanted to follow up on your recent purchase. What kind of complaints? Primarily related to undisclosed fees and misrepresentation of vehicle history. Did Mr. Carr inform you that your BMW had been in an accident before you purchased it? There was a long pause. No, he didn't mention anything about an accident. According to the Carfax report, it was involved in a minor collision in Florida before being shipped to Ohio. The repairs were professionally done, but Ohio law requires disclosure of any accident history. I specifically asked him about that. He told me it was a single-owner vehicle with no damage history. I see. Would you be interested in filing a formal complaint? Dr. Williams was very interested. So were the next 4 customers I called. By Friday, Nathan had received visits from the Better Business Bureau, the Ohio Department of Commerce, and a very unhappy loan officer from First National Bank. His dealership's Google reviews had dropped from 4.8 stars to 2.3 stars overnight. But I wasn't done. Melissa Harper had been Erin's best friend since college, but she'd also been passed over for promotion 3 times while Erin advanced through the ranks at Morrison & Associates. I'd always suspected there was resentment beneath their friendship, and I decided to test my theory. I called Missy at her office. Melissa Harper. Missy, this is Grant Winslow, Erin's husband. Oh, hi Grant. How are you? I'm fine, but I wanted to talk to you about Erin. Do you have a few minutes? Of course. Is everything okay? That depends on how you define okay. I know about Nathan. Silence. Missy, are you there? I'm here. What do you know? I know they've been seeing each other for months. I know she's been lying to me about work trips and conferences, and I know you've been covering for her. Grant, I'm not angry with you, Missy. You were being a good friend. But I need you to understand something. This affair isn't just destroying my marriage, it's going to destroy Erin's career. I explained about the referral payments and the tax fraud. Missy listened without interrupting, and I could practically hear the wheels turning in her head. What do you want from me? She asked finally. I want you to stop covering for her. When she asks you to lie for her, tell her no. When she tries to use you as an alibi, refuse. And when this whole thing blows up, and it will blow up, I want you to remember who tried to protect you. And if I don't? Then you'll go down with her. HR directors don't survive ethics scandals, Missy. You know that better than anyone. The next week, Erin's behavior changed dramatically. She stopped staying out late, stopped taking mysterious phone calls, and started being unusually attentive to me. I've been thinking, she said over dinner on Tuesday. Maybe we should take that trip to Europe we've been talking about. What brought this on? I just feel like we haven't been spending enough time together lately. Work's been so crazy and I miss you. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her wedding ring caught the light from the chandelier, the same ring I'd saved 3 months' salary to buy 20 years ago. That sounds nice, I said. When were you thinking? Soon, maybe next month. What about work? I can take vacation time. Morrison's been pushing everyone to use their days anyway. I nodded and smiled. but inside I was calculating. Erin had used most of her vacation time on her secret trips with Nathan. She was probably facing questions from her boss about her schedule. That night, I called Ty. "How's the war going?" he asked. "I think I'm winning. Nathan's business is falling apart, and Erin's starting to panic." "What's your next move?" "I'm going to give her a chance to come clean. One last opportunity to tell me the truth." "And if she doesn't take it?" "Then I finish what she started." Friday evening, I made dinner reservations at Chez Laurent, the same restaurant where I'd watched Erin and Nathan together. I told her it was a surprise, that I wanted to celebrate our marriage and plan our European vacation. We were seated at a corner table with a view of the city skyline. Erin looked beautiful in a black dress I'd bought her for Christmas. She was trying hard to be the woman I'd fallen in love with 24 years ago. "This is nice," she said, looking around the restaurant. "Very romantic. I thought you'd like it. Have you been here before?" She didn't hesitate. "No, never. It's lovely, though." Another lie. Even when she was trying to save our marriage, she couldn't stop lying. "Erin, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." Her smile faltered slightly. "Of course. Are you having an affair?" The question hung between us like smoke from an extinguished candle. Erin's face went through a series of micro-expressions: surprise, fear, calculation, and finally, indignation. "How can you ask me that?" "Because I need to know." "Grant, I can't believe you would even think—" "I have photos, Erin. I have credit card statements, GPS logs, and witness testimony. I know about the hotels, the lies about work conferences, and the fake girls' nights with Missy. I know everything." She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her weighing her options. Deny everything and hope I was bluffing? Confess and beg for forgiveness? Attack me for violating her privacy? She chose option 3. "You've been spying on me?" "I've been trying to understand why my wife has been lying to me for months." "So you hired some private investigator to follow me around?" "I didn't need to hire anyone. I did it myself." "That's sick, Grant. That's really sick. What's sick is watching your wife kiss another man in the parking lot of a restaurant where you celebrated your anniversary." Her face went white. "You saw us?" "I saw everything. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Erin looked around the restaurant, probably wondering if other diners were listening to our conversation. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." "Nathan and we have history, you know that. And when he came back to town, we started talking, and one thing led to another, but it's not serious. It doesn't mean anything." "It means everything, Erin. It means our marriage is over." "Don't say that. We can work through this. We can go to counseling, take that trip to Europe, start fresh." "How can we start fresh when you can't even stop lying? You told me you'd never been to this restaurant, but I watched you have dinner here with Nathan 3 weeks ago." She started crying then, quiet tears that didn't disturb her makeup. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Grant. I never meant for this to happen." "But it did happen, and now we have to deal with the consequences." "What consequences?" I signaled the waiter for the check. "You'll find out soon enough." The annual Maple Grove Community Block Party was scheduled for the last Saturday in September. Every year, our homeowners association transformed the cul-de-sac into a festival complete with food trucks, live music, and enough neighborhood drama to fuel gossip for months. This year, I was planning to give them something really worth talking about. I'd spent 2 weeks preparing. Nathan's dealership was now under investigation by 3 different state agencies, and his insurance company had started asking uncomfortable questions about his business practices. Several of his largest customers had demanded refunds, and 2 had filed lawsuits. Erin was barely holding things together at work. Missy had stopped covering for her, and her boss David Morrison had started asking pointed questions about her relationship with Nathan's dealership. The referral payments I'd documented were now the subject of an internal ethics review, but the real masterstroke was still to come. Saturday morning dawned clear and cool, perfect weather for destroying lives in public. I helped set up tables and chairs in the street, strung lights between the oak trees, and made small talk with neighbors who had no idea they were about to witness the social equivalent of a nuclear explosion. Erin emerged from our house at noon, wearing a sundress and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She'd been trying to act normal all week, but the stress was showing. She'd lost weight, started smoking again, and had been taking sleeping pills to get through the night. "Beautiful day for the party," said Mrs. Lawton, our 70-year-old neighbor who knew everyone's business and shared most of it. "Absolutely," Erin replied. "I'm looking forward to catching up with everyone." Nathan arrived at 1 o'clock, driving a silver Mercedes instead of his usual Porsche, probably trying to keep a low profile while his business collapsed around him. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in the past month. He nodded to me across the crowd, a tense acknowledgement between enemies. Erin saw him and immediately found an excuse to walk to the other side of the party. At 3 o'clock, Mayor Patricia Henderson took the microphone to make the usual announcements about city services and upcoming events. When she finished, she asked if anyone else had something to share with the community. I raised my hand. "Grant Winslow has something to say," the mayor announced. I walked to the small stage that had been set up near the food trucks. The crowd of about 60 neighbors turned their attention to me, probably expecting some boring announcement about the next HOA meeting. "Thank you, Mayor Henderson. I wanted to take this opportunity to share some news with all of you, since you've been such wonderful neighbors and friends over the years." I could see Erin in the crowd, her face pale with growing alarm. Nathan had moved toward the edge of the gathering, probably planning an escape route. "As many of you know, my wife Erin and I have been married for 20 years. We've built a life together in this community, raised our daughter here, and always tried to be good neighbors." Murmurs of agreement from the crowd. Mrs. Lawton was nodding approvingly. "Unfortunately, I recently discovered that Erin has been having an affair with Nathan Carr, who some of you know from his luxury car dealership." The murmurs stopped. The entire crowd went silent, 60 pairs of eyes turning to look at Erin and Nathan. "Now, I know what you're thinking," I continued. "This is private business, and maybe it doesn't belong at a community event. But here's the thing. Their affair wasn't just personal, it was also professional." I pulled out a folder and opened it dramatically. "You see, Erin has been using her position at Morrison & Associates to refer clients to Nathan's dealership in exchange for kickback payments. These payments were never reported as income on her tax returns, which makes them federal tax fraud." Nathan started pushing through the crowd toward the parking area, but several neighbors blocked his path, apparently fascinated by the unfolding drama. "But wait, there's more," I said, channeling my inner infomercial announcer. "Nathan's dealership has been misrepresenting vehicle histories, charging undisclosed fees, and violating state consumer protection laws. As of yesterday, he's facing investigations by the Better Business Bureau, the Ohio Department of Commerce, and the IRS." The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. "And Erin? Well, Erin is currently under internal investigation at Morrison & Associates for ethics violations. She'll probably be fired by the end of next week." I could see people in the crowd taking out their phones, probably recording video or texting the news to friends who couldn't attend. So I wanted to thank both of them publicly for showing me what 20 years of marriage really meant to them. Apparently, it meant less than a few months of sneaking around with someone else's spouse. Erin was crying now, not the elegant tears from the restaurant, but ugly, desperate sobs. Several neighbors had moved away from her, as if adultery were contagious. I also wanted to let everyone know that I'll be filing for divorce next week. The house will probably go on the market soon, So if anyone's interested in upgrading to a 4-bedroom colonial with a 2-car garage and a recently renovated kitchen, let me know. I closed the folder and looked directly at Nathan, who had given up trying to escape and was standing frozen near the beer tent. Oh, and Nathan? That scratch on your Porsche? That was me, just in case you were wondering. I handed the microphone back to Mayor Henderson, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else on earth. Thank you for your attention, I said to the crowd. Enjoy the rest of the party. I walked off the stage and through the crowd, which parted like the Red Sea. Behind me, I could hear the explosion of conversation as 60 neighbors started processing what they'd just witnessed. Erin caught up with me at our front door. "How could you do that to me?" she screamed. "How could you humiliate me like that in front of everyone?" "The same way you humiliated me for the past 6 months," I replied calmly. "The only difference is that I did it honestly. You've destroyed everything. My job, my reputation, my friendships. No, Erin. You destroyed those things when you decided to cheat on your husband with a man who was helping you commit tax fraud. I just made sure everyone knew about it. I hate you. I know. But you hated me before this too. You just hid it better." She stormed into the house, probably to pack a bag and find somewhere else to stay. Nathan had already left the party, driving away in his Mercedes while neighbors took photos of his license plate. I sat down on my front porch and opened a beer, watching the chaos unfold in the street below. Mrs. Lawton was holding court near the dessert table, probably giving her analysis of the situation to anyone who would listen. Mayor Henderson was trying to restore some semblance of normalcy, but it was a lost cause. My phone buzzed with a text from Ty. "Heard about the party. You okay?" I typed back, "Never better." And for the first time in months, that was actually true. 20 minutes later, Erin emerged from the house with 2 suitcases and her laptop bag. She threw them in the back of her BMW and drove away without looking back. I finished my beer and went inside to start planning the rest of my life. On my desk, next to my laptop, was a photo of Erin and me from our wedding day. We looked so young, so happy, so convinced that we'd figured out the secret to lasting love. I picked up the photo and studied it for a moment, remembering the man I used to be and the woman I thought I'd married. Then I opened my desk drawer and dropped it inside, next to the folder containing all the evidence of Erin's affair. Some audits take years to complete, others end exactly when they're supposed to. I opened my laptop and started typing an email to my lawyer. It was time to begin the final phase of my investigation, divorce proceedings. Outside, the block party was winding down, but I could still hear neighbors talking in excited voices about the afternoon's entertainment. By tomorrow, the story would be all over social media. By next week, it would be neighborhood legend. I'd gone from being the boring auditor who lived in the colonial with the blue shutters to being the man who'd orchestrated the most spectacular public revenge in Maple Grove history. It felt pretty good. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. Erin had been fired from Morrison & Associates and was working as a temp at a small accounting firm downtown. Nathan's dealership had closed, and he'd moved to Florida to start over in a state where fewer people knew about his legal troubles. I kept the house, most of our assets, and my dignity. Erin got half the retirement accounts and a valuable lesson about the consequences of betraying someone who makes a living exposing other people's secrets. Chloe had been angry with me at first, but eventually came around when she learned the full extent of her mother's deception. "I always thought you were the boring parent," she told me during one of our weekly phone calls. "Turns out you were just saving up all your excitement for one big moment." I'd started dating again, nothing serious yet, but it was nice to have dinner with women who didn't lie about their whereabouts or cheat with their ex-boyfriends. Amazing how low your standards can drop when you're married to someone who's systematically destroying your trust. The house felt different now, lighter somehow. I'd redecorated the bedroom, turned Erin's home office into a library, and finally bought that leather recliner I'd been wanting for years. On quiet evenings, I'd sit in my recliner with a good book and a glass of bourbon, listening to the sounds of my neighborhood. Sometimes I'd see Mrs. Lawton walking her dog past my house, and she'd wave and smile. I'd become something of a local celebrity, the man who'd turned a community block party into performance art. People often asked me if I regretted the way I'd handled things, if I wished I'd been more private, more dignified, more forgiving. The answer was always no. Erin had made her choices carefully and deliberately. She'd lied to me, stolen from the government, and destroyed our marriage for the sake of a man who sold overpriced cars to people with more money than sense. I'd simply made sure that her choices had appropriate consequences. That's what auditors do. We find the truth, document it carefully, and present it to the people who need to see it. In this case, the people who needed to see it were 60 of my closest neighbors, the IRS, the Ohio Department of Commerce, and a divorce court judge. I'd spent 20 years being the boring, reliable husband who paid the bills, mowed the lawn, and never caused any drama. Turns out I was pretty good at drama when I put my mind to it.